Well, we're still in the season of Virgo. So many things to consider here. Mercury. Get back over to the chart. Mercury, the ruler of Virgo. You can kind of see in this map for tomorrow. Mercury, by the way, Mercury right now is moving very fast. We'll go over here to our things. This is the speed of travel that planets are moving at. Moon is basically moving about normal, about 12 degrees a day. The sun, almost a degree a day. Mercury is moving 1 degree 53 minutes, almost 2 degrees a day. So it's clipping along. Right now, it's the only thing that's moving faster than that is the moon. But something to keep in mind that Mercury, because it's moving fast, uh, our energetic thoughts, how we grasp new ideas and stuff, uh, you can say that it's fired up. Mercury moving fast is about covering a lot of territory quickly. So we're in the season of Virgo. Mercury, its ruler, moving fast says, you know, how, you know, one should keep in mind that in the discriminating processes of Virgo land, the potential for discriminating as a positive function or discriminating as a negative function are both in play. This is the land of Virgo after all. And you have to recognize that this accelerated mercurial nature, which right now is at the very end of Leo, basically on Monday, this is going to shift from Leo into Virgo. So Mercury's coming home, and you want to make sure that you've got some level of your ducks in a row as Mercury does a very quick race through the sign of Virgo. And in that, it's going to touch a lot of factors. Uh, One of the first factors that it touches, oh, also on this same day, I'm going to bounce around as I usually do. Saturn has just moved back into the sign of Pisces, opposite from, you guessed it, Virgo. So you kind of have to say that Saturn can have some kind of a discrimination quality about it too, as it, works at, formulating a structural pattern, if you will, for how to facilitate things in its opposition to the sign of Virgo, which it, went through for 2.5 years already, but it's, wasn't quite done with that. There's something that needed to be ironed out that this Saturn going back into Virgo for just a short little while is saying, you know, the version of, the Pisces land, that visionary poet, imaginary, the mystic. These are the kinds of things that Pisces stands for. And Saturn says, there's something in that realm that mm, probably requires just a little bit more fine tuning. Well, fine tuning, I think, is a good quality to tune back into opposite that Pisces zone, Virgo. And with Mercury going into Virgo, it's there's many things. It forms the focus of a yod, Y-O-D, or finger of God. And uh, that's not necessarily the easiest thing to grasp. Uh, what a yod represents is the planets involved in it, which are this Saturn and Neptune. Pluto up here, they're in a sextile to each other. So they're basically having a conversation that, flows easily between them. Where the challenge of a yacht comes in is that the planet that is staying at the focus, in this case, Mercury, is in a quincunx, 5/12ths of a circle, to both this Saturn Neptune conjunction and Pluto up here at 1 degree of Aquarius. And so, what the inconjunct represents is it represents an energy that says that something is going to have to give way, if you will, in relationship to this interaction between Mercury, how we think and everything, and that deep transformative plutonic, you know, day life, uh, day, night, life, death kind of energy that Pluto represents, and the Saturn Neptune thing over there saying, there are versions of this unlimited frontier that, you know, mm, are going to appear in the challenge side of the equation for that Mercury in Virgo. It's like Virgo's idea of, getting stuff functionally uh, taking place in a meaningful context with the yod, the finger of God on it, is saying, well, from a yod perspective, or the quincunx inconjunct perspective, what am I going to have to let go of from one side of this equation in order to allow something to transpire? This is where the challenge is of a yod, and it's coming to focus on that Mercury, and Mercury, remember, it's clipping along, it's moving fast, it's just entered its own sign. So you can kind of feel a kind of an intake of breath that's possible. This is about like new life. Give me some facts, in order that I might become more than I was before this moment. Yeah, this is, you can kind of feel the in-breath of Virgo saying, you know, discipline. There's a really good Virgo term. Or disciple. These are both related terms. And, the we can let's give us an example. The disciple could become a monk. Yeah. Or you could be so disciplined that you are the hardest worker that you possibly ever thought you could be. Now, those two could essentially be, shuffled together in a way that is effective. Effective. That's a good Virgo term. Effective. So here we are. The land of Virgo continues to unfold. And, just to add a little extra panache, on this day that that Mercury has entered Virgo, it also goes into a square with Uranus down here at the very earliest degrees of Gemini. Disruption? Uranus can bring this into any equation. But these are the two signs that Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. Perhaps one might, in this early days of this week, consider Uranus is stationary, it's standing still. So that makes it very powerful, saying that I am going to bring you as much information as you can handle. Mercury, coming into its own sign at a clip, really moving along and saying, yeah, feed me, give me more information, give me more stuff that I can work with. But it's also Uranus we're talking about. So can you handle the energy would be the question. Because, remember, it is Uranus and, disruption can very much be a part of the equation. You know, how much input of information is too much? That's worth a consideration right now as we try to, you know, glean and grab a hold of as many parts of any equation that we're working with to try to, focus them in on a meaningful context that Virgo can say, this is what this is about right now. And you can kind of feel in the background that Uranus stationary right there at the very first degree of Gemini is saying, yeah, I've fed you so much information. How much of it is true? You can kind of take a look at just the political thing going on here in the United States right now. There's a lot of information out there that is, oh, so very far from true. And, you know, Mercury right now at a clip here in Virgo is saying, you know, would like to, as best I can, determine what is and what isn't real so that something meaningful can come out of this. And this is a challenge these days at that political arena level. I don't want to dwell on that. Each of us basically has to make our own uh, fact-based consideration in that realm that we can live with. And with any luck, we will be able to come out the other end stronger people than going into this we were. As we go through the week, oh yeah, moon is out of bounds at the beginning of this week, right up until this day. And see the moon is up there in Capricorn, which means it's in the Southlands. So our feelings, they're in that out of bounds land. There's a certain Uranian quality to it. Predictability, not necessarily the case. But we still have to feel the energy of what the life experience is asking us to participate in. There's, oh yes, one very fun aspect. We get to Thursday, a Jupiter day, and you can see that Mars here is in a nice, strong square to Jupiter down here in Cancer. Mars in Libra, not exactly its strong suit because it's in its detriment when it's in Libra. It's opposite one of the signs that it rules, Libra. I mean, Aries. So we still have to consider the fact that this square aspect running between Jupiter and Mars, it has to be taken into consideration because generally aspects between Mars and Jupiter, you would could almost feel the potential for, you know, how, from a Jupiter perspective, how large do I want to enhance anything that I touch? This is essential Jupiter in Cancer, that realm of hearth and home, our roots and stuff. Now, when Mars comes into a Jupiter consideration, you could almost picture this. There's, The fiery, impulsive energy of Mars, even though it's in Libra and not at its strongest, it's still Mars. And the potential for total abandonment of practicality and holding oneself back doesn't exist in the realm of Jupiter. And so, what might take place in this square, because it's a square, there's the possibility for tension is always there. And one of the factors that this tension could bring up is that perhaps if we're not cautious in the exuberance of life that Mars wants to expand Jupiter's potential into, we may take chances that are beyond our capability of being able to sustain for very long. So, Libra, the realm of what does it mean to interact with the other? And you can kind of feel this horse ready to charge forth. That's Mars in the realm of Libra. So the potential for interacting with other people being pushed by, oh yeah, that Jupiter energy saying, how many more people can we get into this, into the telephone booth, into this VW? And what are the consequences? There's that square saying, oh, yeah, someone may come out of the VW with, a dislocated shoulder because of their willingness to cram themselves in so tight together. This is the energy that is potential as these two planets square each other this week. There's you know, a desire to be more, to include more into any consideration that you're a part of. But it's a square. There will be a cost. So pay attention, you know. And I would, you know, I'm not going to go there. Forget it. On Saturday, Uranus just shifted directions. It just went retrograde. And it's going to be retrograde for the rest of the year, I believe. Yeah, for the rest of the year into January sometime. Maybe February. I don't know. I haven't looked that far ahead. And how best to play this? That's always the question. It's perhaps we could see this as a backpedaling of a disruptive kind of energy that Gemini represents to say that, you know, I had a lot of ideas about ways to, gather more information, which may or may not have been entirely ethical. But I am Uranus, you know. And part of that experience of what it is that I represent is to challenge you to say, I'm going to give you this to work with, and I'm going to pour it on. I'm going to add so much to it that you're going to have to say, wait a second. How much can a person handle? This is where some discrimination, our Virgo side of us, we all have it, could come in the other aspect of that mercurial energy and say, okay, I know that Uranus, you want to shake us enough to wake us up into something new. Now that Uranus is going retrograde, going to go back into Taurus for a little while, the experience is, you know, a kind of a hold on to your horses there a minute. Perhaps once we have a respite back into this Taurian energy for a while. This Uranus coming back into Gemini in its direct motion again, we will be, less inclined. I don't know if we'll ever be less inclined to want to have it all, be so inundated with information that, stuff starts to fall off the edges of what it is that we can effectively contain. Let's go to Sunday. We have an eclipse forming. It'll be at 15 degrees of Pisces, that moon up there in Pisces. This is a North Node eclipse. This one of the reasons that I chose that image to begin with, the Ouroboros, dragon or snake eating its tail in the celestial dance of the north and south nodes of the moon, which are the two energetic points that actually create the eclipses. When a new or a full moon happens to be within 17 degrees of the either one of the nodes, that's when, the Earth or the moon gets in the way of the sun's light. And this image, North Node, the head of the dragon, represents a destiny line that, it sits there kind of like a mirage in a desert. It invites you. It says that there's something there that I need to get to. It looks like, a pool of water. And in the dry, hard heat of the desert, it's like, this is what I need. You know, it's, uh, however, the requirement of once you get there and discover it was just a mirage. Well, the North Node can oftentimes seem just like that. It's a really good idea. And the image of the South Node is this is a a factor, if you will, that's in play that says that I have been along this trajectory that I'm on to many places. And the Node can represent those places I have been, you know. And while I was in these places, I learned certain things. I became proficient, if you will, at this or that or the other thing. And as such, what that South Node represents is it represents it. I don't really have to apply a lot of energy to where that South Node idea is in order to accomplish or, maybe reaccomplish the things that it represents. If, however, we get hung up on that South Node energetic quotient, the destiny line of that South to North Node configuration that is our ideal trajectory forward can get waylaid because we're doing the things that we've done before and we're not growing. This image of the dragon eating its tail is that the utilization of that South Node information can be applied efficiently to take a next step forward. The dragon's head is eating the tail. I'm utilizing that South Node energy to awaken a new North Node awareness that I don't know what it is yet. Well, this eclipse, this lunar eclipse is happening here at 15 degrees of Pisces, is that North Node vision saying, are you awake enough and tuned in effectively enough to what Pisces wants to awaken within you? Technically, the unlimited frontier, a version of reality that has not been present yet. And, you know, a lot of people get all hung up on the eclipses and stuff. And it's mostly at the mechanical level, not necessarily at the energetic level of what's transpiring. Yeah, the moon's light is going to dim for a little bit as the Earth's shadow moves across it. But you have to ask yourself, you know, we're in the season of Virgo right now. There's there's that crunching of information and numbers and facts and details that we're trying to facilitate some level of organization with and through. From the Pisces perspective, opposite of that, it's like, chill, bro. There's a version of reality that um, I was going to say supersedes, but it's more like extends the reason for why it is you are trying to get so organized with all those facts and figures. And it, in a way, it's an invitation to, you know, kind of say, yeah, if I, get hung up on the details of things, I'm not going to be able to recognize that there's a place for something new to be born. This is the Piscean full moon eclipse that's taking place here on Sunday. And keeping that in mind, let's look at the Sabian symbol for what it is that particular degree of the zodiac might be worth meditating upon and finding, where is it that my energy, our energy, might be more effectively utilized. There's our Virgo side coming through. If, and this is right at the middle degree of Pisces, if you happen to have a focus planet point, something in your chart that is quite close to this middle degree of Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Gemini, you know, you're going to likely feel this more effectively than the rest of us because those are conjunctions, squares, and oppositions to this particular degree where the eclipse is taking place. So pay attention if any of those degrees are tickling aspects of yourself. The Sabian symbol reads, in the quiet of his study, a creative individual experiences a flow of inspiration. The keynote, reliance upon one's inner source of inspiration or guidance. Further, in this last scene of the great ritual of cyclic existence, we are dealing with various aspects of the process that enables man to confirm, formulate, and perpetuate the original creative impulse, which has become self actualized in a myriad of ways throughout the cycle, short or long as the cycle may be. This first symbol strikes the keynote of truly significant creative processes. Their source is above, beyond, but also around the individual creator. The inspiration, original and individual though it may be, is given a form which is conditioned by the cultural, social, and religious background of the creative person. In a sense, every genius merely records an answer to the needs of his time. The hands that write, play an instrument, or mold a plastic material are his own. The urge to drive back of the flow of inspiration, the urge or drive back of the flow of inspiration has arisen in the vast collective mind of man. The individual aspect of the creative process is emphasized, as is the individual's need for concentration and at least inner quiet. He must have faith in his own subjective strength. So, as this week comes to a close and we're being inspired, tickled, challenged, if you will, by this lunar eclipse in the deepest, most profound realm of the zodiac, Pisces. Can you sense? Can you feel? Are you aware of a soul connection trying to awaken within you? The call is there. Are you inspired? Are the creative juices flowing effectively enough within you to awaken to that North Node opportunity for something new to put in an appearance that is so profound you hadn't thought of it before? This is the invitation that this particular lunar eclipse brings for all of us, maybe more specifically to those with, the degrees of those middle mutable signs. But really, it's for all of us. Pay attention. Is your soul sensing that it wants to wake up at this point to a fresh version of what it means to be deeply in tune with your soul awareness? That's all I got for this week. Um, Enjoy the ride. This is a dynamic time that we live in, and we're being called upon in each moment to do things that we may not have done before. Trust yourself. Trust your soul level in interior, exterior quality of who you really are to actually ferret out a meaningful direction going forward. And I leave you with that thought. Be inspired. Ciao. See you all next week.